Hello everybody and welcome to my video series on how to play Pokemon. In this episode, I'm going to teach you about the many different Pokemon types as well as the type chart to how they match up. Learning the Pokemon types and the type chart is a good starting place to learn how to play the game itself. By now you may have noticed that Pokemon have elemental types. Some even have two, but we'll revisit that point later. These types are one of the most important factors that contribute to how a Pokemon takes damage and, more importantly, how much damage that Pokemon takes. Let's get a history lesson going. In the first generation games, 15 types were introduced. Psychic types were deemed a little bit too powerful in the first generation games, so to compensate, in Generation 2 they came out with Dark type to counter them. Generation 2 also released Steel type, which is purely defensive and has a lot of resistances. As time went on, specifically in Generation 5, dragons were becoming a bit overpowered, so Fairy type was added in Generation 6 to balance out dragon types. Prior to Generation 6, Steel and Poison were not very strong offensively, so they now trump Fairy type to compensate. So as of Generation 6, there are now 18 types in the world of Pokemon. The way types work in Pokemon is pretty simple. Think of it as a gigantic game of rock, paper, scissors. Pokemon have types. Moves have types too. If the type of the move you use is strong against the type of the Pokemon you're using it against, you'll do more damage than normal. If you use a type of move that doesn't do well against a certain type, you'll do less damage. Some matchups have neither an advantage nor a disadvantage and therefore will do a regular amount of damage. And in rare instances, certain type matchups will be completely shrugged off and simply won't do anything at all. So needless to say, it's very important to commit these types of moves, and types of Pokemon to memory. It might seem like a lot to handle, but believe me when I say it'll come naturally as you play the game more and as you become more familiar with the Pokemon universe. The game itself knows that they put a lot on your plate and they try to ease you in slowly so as not to make you feel overwhelmed. So now let's hear about type effectiveness. Regularly effective moves will inflict normal damage, which is a multiplier of 1. Regularly effective moves are considered neutral. If a move is super effective against a Pokemon, that move will inflict double the damage it would have initially. Pokemon defending against a super effective move are known to be weak to it, and these type matchups are considered weaknesses. If a move is not very effective against a Pokemon, that move will inflict half damage. Pokemon defending against a not very effective move are said to resist that move, and these type matchups are considered resistances. Lastly, if a move doesn't affect the enemy Pokemon at all, it won't do a single point of damage. Pokemon defending against a move that doesn't affect it are considered immune to this type, and these types are listed as immunities. An easy to grasp example of type effectiveness is the starter type triangle. These are seen in the starter Pokemon of each generation, the ones that are given to you for free at the beginning of each game. Each game's intro sequence has you choose one of 3 types of Pokemon: grass, fire, and water. They chose these types specifically because they have sort of a rock, paper, scissors rotation, and it goes as follows. Grass is super effective against water, water is super effective against fire, and fire is super effective against grass. If we go the other way around, we see the opposite. Grass is not very effective against fire, fire is not very effective against water, and water is not very effective against grass. Also, it's good to know that these types resist themselves. So, grass is not very effective against grass, fire is not very effective against fire, and water is not very effective against water. This is the type chart that every beginner trainer should commit to memory, and it's the one that the game tries to push on you the most. So once you get it down pat, you'll be ready to take on the whole type chart. Now, as I said earlier, some Pokemon can have 2 types, which can either help or hinder the Pokemon sporting them. Because 2 types are present, moves can now have quadruple effectiveness and quartered effectiveness. For example's sake, let's take a look at Charizard. Charizard is fire and flying type. Let's take a look at the benefits first. Charizard is a flying type, which means he would normally be weak to ice. However, since he's also a fire type, fire resists ice, and therefore flying's weakness to ice is negated, and he would take neutral damage instead of super effective damage. In addition to that, both fire and flying are resistant against grass, so since he has a double resistance to it, Charizard takes 1/4 the damage against grass type attacks. Now the negatives. Not only is fire weak to rock, but flying is weak to rock as well. If Charizard gets hit by a rock type move, he's taking 4 times the damage that he normally would, which is a scary amount. So now you're probably thinking, okay, I know fire, grass, and water, but where do I start now? This type chart is massive, right? Personally, I would say that you want to learn the immunities first. Reason 1 being that once you learn the immunities, the rest of the chart will fall into place a little bit easier for you. Reason 2 is that the very worst thing you can do, as far as types are concerned anyway, is not do damage at all. So if you commit immunities to memory, you can sidestep that landmine and avoid a few issues later. As of Generation 6, there are 8 type immunities, and they go as follows. Ground does not affect flying, pretty logical if you think about it. Normal and fighting do not affect ghost. and Ghost does not affect Normal. These go on more of a theme of paranormal things not being able to interact with physical things. Electric does not affect Ground. If you think about electricity, ground is the term that refers to electricity being nullified. Poison does not affect Steel. Only living things can be poisoned, machines can't. Psychic doesn't affect Dark. Remember that Dark type was added specifically to counter Psychic type. And Dragon does not affect Fairy. Remember that Fairy was added specifically to counter dragons. Now keep in mind that for type matchups, there's an attacking type and a defending type. They don't go both ways. For example, Dark and Psychic. Dark is super effective against Psychic, but Psychic does not affect Dark. Just keep that in mind. I can't really sit down and explain the whole type chart to you. I'd probably be here for about 4.5 hours if I tried, but this should be enough of a nudge in the right direction to help you learn it on your own. With that said, Bulbapedia has a pretty up-to-date type chart. If you don't like Bulbapedia, or if you can't remember Bulbapedia for some reason, just look up Generation 6 type chart. Well, that just about does it for this episode. In the next one, I'll be talking about stats. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.